Hi, this is the Face2Face podcast. In this episode, we are speaking to the esteemed Maggie Kathewera Banda, who for decades has been pushing for women's inclusion in governance, policies, and so much more, especially rights. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Have I skipped out on the introduction? I feel like I have because you have done so much and you do so much.
Okay, maybe just to add a bit to say that I'm an originator of the Women's Manifesto. I don't know if you have heard about
Of
it.
course.
I'm the chairperson of NGO Gender Connection Network. I'm also the founder and executive director of Women's Legal Resources Center, Warwick. Yeah.
The organization that's done quite a lot. If you've ever heard of any women's rights issue or case in the courts in Malawi and there's no Warwick, it's not a legit case. But it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
And in this episode, we're going to be focusing especially on the just past elections
Yes.
and your perspective from your lens. Beginning with, I think the first question should be the fact that 57% of the registered voters
Yes.
were women.
Yeah.
However, the reports that we've seen about what's happened on the ground, the number of women that actually turned out is very different. What do you think caused this?
Okay, so I think one is that there was a lot of voter mobilization done, and that's why you found that women turned up in large numbers. But I think along the way, we should have continued with the momentum, because I think people relax to say, okay, people have turned up, they have registered. But you find that I think it's one thing to register and another thing to vote.
Very different.
So I think that is the element that was missing, because I think we assume too much to say those that have registered, they're going to vote. So I think there should have been already awareness raising to ensure that those that registered were also able to vote. Of course, we are here to find out in terms of what could have been the reasons for people not to turn up. But I think just to say that I think there's been a gen of voter apathy, and not just by women, but even by men. And I think most of the times people have attributed to the fact that politicians never stick to their promises.
Yeah.
And I think that was the major issue that actually guided the voting pattern, but even the voter turnout. Yes.
Comparing to 2019, what would you say stood out the most when it comes to women's engagement in this particular election?
Okay, so I think in 2025, what we saw was an increased number of women that expressed interest to contest. Yeah, at presidential level, at parliamentary level, but also at local government level. But I think when we now came to the time of nominations, we saw some women dropping out.
Quite a lot, actually.
Because some could not afford to pay for the nomination fees. Others were even thinking about the campaign in terms of how they are going to fund their campaigns. So that put off a lot of women that were interested to contest. Yeah.
I'm glad that you've brought in the finance thing because that was going to be one of my follow-up questions, but I'm glad you've approached it now.
Yes.
What are some of the barriers that you notice that women have been facing, the risks and barriers when it came to these elections?
For me, I would say there were many. Yeah, so it's not just about financing. So I think financing is one of it, because we noted that political parties also didn't have a mechanism to support their own candidates.
Yes, sir.
Because most of the times they were also depending on NGOs like ourselves to say, can you support the women and all that. Then another issue is also just about how the primaries were done in most of the political parties. Women felt shortchanged. They felt that the processes were not fair, and therefore they opted out and contested as independents. That also has implications, because then it also means that you don't have the moral support from a political party. You are on your own, basically.
And the structural support as well, because I think political parties have that ability to give guidance.
Yes. So you're on your own. And actually, we had political parties that would come out and say, we don't recognize any independent candidate. So if they are claiming that they belong to this party, forget about it. They don't belong to us. They are on their own. Then we also had issues to do with just the social norms, where people think that women cannot make good leaders. Yeah, so that also affected women. Yeah, but also even issues of capacity. So like how they can put up effective campaigns and all that. Issues to do with violence against women prior to campaign period. I think they were also rampant. We had cases where women were targeted physically, but also through the cyberspace. That also put input of some women in the process. So those are some of the challenges that women faced in these elections. Yeah.
Would you say that there was any encouraging sign from security agencies, maybe other NGOs? Because you've pinpointed a very important fact that the
Yes,
political
yes.
parties themselves were not encouraging to the women who were
Yeah.
willing to stand as
Yeah.
candidates. What about the security agencies?
Yeah, it had to take a lot of engagements actually, because I remember from January up to May, around that time, there were cases that were being reported by women. And as Warwick, together with other partners like Oxfam and other organizations, we had to do some engagements with security agencies. We had meetings with the police, we had meetings with MDF, all trying to see how women are going to feel safe within the elections period. But also, we supported women to come out from their political parties, because we're saying, as civil society organizations, we can be speaking against violence against women. But then we also need women in the political space to come out and speak for themselves. So we had to then mobilize women from 7 major political parties. And they came out, they had a press briefing where they denounced the violence that was taking place against women. And then at that press briefing, they also demanded action from the police. And beyond the press briefing, there was also an engagement between the women from the political parties and the police, where they were now able to discuss how best they could work together to ensure that the process is as safe as possible. So we saw a change indeed from the police, I think, in terms of how they were responding to issues of women, how they were ensuring that there's safety and security for women and all that. And I think you would agree with me that during the campaign period, we saw a lot of peaceful
That's true.
campaign rallies.
That's true.
Yeah, so we only had 2 cases that were reported to us where 2 females, their campaign teams were targeted. But other than that, I think relatively it has been a peaceful environment.
That's wonderful to hear. So if you had maybe one message that you'd like to give to the security agencies,
Yes.
because it sounds like it's been very positive, what message
Yeah.
would you give to them?
Yeah, for me, I just say keep it up. Well done. You did a good job, and I think this is what we're expecting from you going forward. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. It's very rare where we can come through an election and actually say something
Yeah,
good
exactly.
about our security agencies.
True.
Now, back to the earlier point that we were raising regarding the barriers that women experienced in this election.
Yeah.
The financial one, as much as it's one of the
Yeah.
barriers, I
Yeah.
feel like it was one of the biggest ones.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say?
Okay, so for me, I normally say all the challenges are almost like the same, because one challenge works in a very different way altogether. But anyway, let's talk about the campaigning financing, the financing around campaign. Indeed, it was a huge challenge because, one, women had to raise money for fees. So you find that, for example, those that were contesting for the position of an MP, they had to pay about 1,200,000. It's a reduction of 50% because men were paying about 2,400,000. But then 1.2 million in the context of Malawi still remains
a lot of
very
money.
high.
It's
Yes.
a lot of money.
So not a lot of women were able to raise that. Beyond that, we also have campaigns. In Malawi, campaigns are very expensive because you need to produce campaign materials, for example, in form of T-shirts, in form of wrappers, in form of whatever caps, or those that are
Promotional
branded,
materials, yeah.
branded materials that you can give out to voters, and then they should think of voting for you. So obviously, who can produce as many T-shirts as possible in this context that we are operating in? So that was also a hindrance indeed,
Okay.
because then women didn't have anywhere to go and get money for them to produce such kind of materials. At the same time, as NGOs, we are also limited in terms of funding. So there's and there's a limit to what donors can also support. Yeah. So much as, for example, Warwick, we supported in terms of producing calendars for women, for the youth and persons with disabilities, but we could not go beyond what women were expecting.
Is there also for NGOs, maybe this would also help us understand,
Yeah.
is there a limit as to how much you can support a candidate without it seeming like, no, you've got a hidden agenda?
No, there's no limit. limit, I think if you go by the law, there's no limit, basically. Yeah. But it's just that even us as NGOs, we're also limited in terms of how much funding we can get,
Yes, yes.
to support such kind of initiatives. I would also say that OREC, together with Oxfam, we're also able to give grants to women. And that was after they had been declared candidates by MEC. But you find that even the amount of money was not much, but still something for them to cushion their campaigns. So I think there's also a limit, in terms of what donors can support. Though in terms of the law, there's no limit in terms of what NGOs can support. As long as they are campaign materials, then that is fine. As long as they're not handouts, because the Political Parties Act prohibits handouts. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I think it's something that a lot of people didn't know. On top of the finances,
Yes.
maybe another question that I would like to ask from your perspective.
Yeah.
Have there been cultural barriers that have either still existed here in this current election or that we have broken with regards to women being candidates?
Okay, so I think there's still cultural barriers. Yeah, there's still social norms that guide people when they're voting. People feel that women cannot make good candidates or good leaders. I'll tell you this. At one time, I think I had a comment from one of the women that was saying, it's not good for a woman to be president because that erodes, the presidency.
What?
And I'm saying, what? What are you talking about? And you're a woman. So that kind
Who
of...
runs your own household?
Exactly. So we are in a patriarchal society. So we are being raised in a patriarchal society that doesn't really believe that women can make it as leaders. Yeah. So women have to remain in the private space. So as long as you're in the private space, you're cooking, you're taking care of your family, that is fine.
In the background.
But when in the background, but when you come into the public space, then it becomes an issue. So you find that women that come out in the public to contest, they face a lot of criticism, a lot of insults, a lot of intimidation because they are not expected to participate in the public arena. Yeah, you talk about, for example, the only female presidential candidate that we had,
Yes.
Joyce Banda.
Yes.
You check on the cyberspace, the
Yes.
kind of comments that people are giving. Yeah, it was almost like, I mean, if she was not strong, she was going
it's
to...
as if we forgot she already served
You
as a
see,
president before. Like, she
exactly.
knows what she's doing.
And during her time, the 2 years that she was in power, I think she performed.
Yes,
But you
she
find
did.
that the negative comments that people are giving on social media, and you're saying, oh, why is it so? But it's because it's a patriarchal society that doesn't believe that women can be good leaders. Yes.
So, as the civil society, if you could rethink the strategy for the next elections with that in mind,
Yes.
what would it look like?
Okay, there are several strategies that we need to put in place. One, it's about reaching out to the communities, trying to change the mindset, because it's really about mindset change. People need to understand that even women can make good leaders. That's one. But also, we need to have a specific law, because I think right now we are really depending on the goodwill of political parties to field women as candidates. But how many political parties are willing to do that? If you just check political parties, you find that even their own central executive committees, they don't have a lot of women. So that says a lot in terms of their own perception of women's leadership. You check their national executive committees, there are not a lot of women in those. Do we say that women are not in the political parties? They are there. But it's just...
And even they are the faces of
they
the
are the
political parties.
faces, they're the ones that will bring morale and all that. But in terms of leadership, then it becomes a very different scenario. So we need to have a law that will not depend on the goodwill of political party leaders, but it will depend on the law, the legal framework of the nation. So we need a law that will guarantee quotas for women. And I think if you look at countries that have made it in terms of women representation, like Rwanda, you find that they have a specific law that talks about quotas for women. So I think that's the direction that we should be talking about. So apart from where awareness raising on mindset change and all that, but we should also have a law that will guarantee women's participation and representation in parliament, in local government, but even at presidential level.
I like that. So on the backs of that, from the Women's Manifesto that you have piloted and you have championed, and if you don't know the Women's Manifesto and you're a woman, you need to know what the Women's Manifesto is.
Exactly.
With the new parliamentarians that are coming in, what are some of the commitments that you'd like to see actually tested for the next cycle?
Yeah, for me, I think the first one is the cabinet. Yeah, because for us, we are clear. We have the Malawi Gender Equality Act that talks about quotas. And it says that for any public appointments done, there should not cannot be more than 60% and not less than 40% of either sex.
Yes.
So we need to have a good interpretation of the same. Because most of the times people have thought that the 40% is applicable to women. It's not. It says either sex. So what it means is that we can actually have a 50-50 cabinet where we have 50% women, 50% men.
Or 60%
we can even have
women,
exactly
40% men.
yes, as long as we are in that bracket.
Yes.
So that's what I'm looking forward to. So the new president that will be sworn in will be checking what kind of cabinet has he put in place. Yeah, that's one. The other issue now is about what kind of laws are being put in place to support women's participation. Because in 2019, there was an effort that was done to have an electoral bill that was talking about quotas for women. And at that time, it was saying that apart from the 229 constituencies that we have, each district would be regarded as a constituency.
Okay.
So, for example, like Blantyre, it would be regarded as a constituency, apart from the constituencies that are in Blantyre. So, what it meant is that we're going to have 28 women guaranteed, because as a district, it will be contested by women only from different political parties. But then we did not have the support that it was needed. So, we are back to square one. We don't have a law, we don't have anything in place. So we need Parliament to enact a law to provide for quotas. We have a political empowerment of women strategy, produced by Ministry of Gender, Committed Development and Social Welfare. It's not funded. We need the national budget to be able to support.
That's a shock.
Yes. We need the national budget to be able to support such kind of strategies. Yeah. Apart from that, for us in the Women's Manifesto, we have also talked about women's economic empowerment. It's high time that we need to have a special fund for women.
Yes.
And I think this is one thing that we have also been talking about. Because most of the times people would lump women together with everyone else. And then they would assume that women are going to get it. It doesn't work.
And we've just seen.
Exactly.
We've literally just seen what's happened.
Yes. You need to have special mechanisms for women. So we need an economic empowerment fund for women. And even as we're talking about financing for campaigns, if, for example, women are economically empowered, I think the issue of financing for campaigns would be something of the past.
It wouldn't be a big deal.
Because in 2030,
it would even the field.
Exactly. So in 2030, what it means is that we'll have more women that have more resources that they can be able to put out campaigns and make it to Parliament or local government. Yeah, so those are some of the things that we'll be looking forward to.
I hope our leaders are watching this podcast and actually take this to note.
Yes.
Because they seem like they're complicated, but it's really not. You're not
It's
asking for
doable.
much.
It's doable. You know, like the issue of Women's Economic Empowerment Fund, it's working in Kenya, it's working in South Africa, so why can't it work in Malawi?
We have the Youth Empowerment Fund
Yes,
that we push forward
exactly.
here in Malawi.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be that complicated
No,
to
it's
set up one
not.
for women.
Yeah.
But speaking of having women in leadership positions, Malawi has so far seen 2 female MEC chairs.
Yes.
Both who have, I don't want to say unfortunately, but have had to deal with very contentious elections. I think at this point, every election is contentious in Malawi.
Yes.
But would you say this gives a different perspective of how Malawians think about women in leadership roles?
I don't think so. Okay, I'll tell you this. In 2019, there was a lot of negativity
So much.
around the MEC chair. I think at that time, she actually expressed the fact that she had used the law. She was working within the legal framework that governs elections, but no one would listen to her because at that time people felt she should change. They felt that the elections
They painted her as a villain.
Yes. So this time around we saw the same. Yeah, so as we're going towards elections, there was a lot of negativity around the current chair. Yeah, but she kept on saying, I'm operating within the law. There was a time actually the opposition parties were actually calling for her to resign. And she had to remain strong and said, I'm not going to resign. Yeah, because when people are making allegations, they need to prove. Yeah. So for us, we're saying, okay, has she violated any law?
No.
Is she working within the law? Yes. So where is the problem? But now, if you hear the comments of people, they're saying, oh, she's a strong woman, or she has stood her ground.
The story has changed.
Now the story has changed. So it has been a mixed bag. I think that's what I would say. I think where people have felt that if someone is towing their lines, then she's fine. If she's not
Yes.
towing their lines, then she's not okay. But I think for me, the most important thing to say for women that are in positions like that, what should protect them is the law. If they're operating within the law, then that is fine, because they can always go anywhere else and be able to prove their case to say, I've been able to operate within the law and this is what I've done. Yeah.
Do you think the media have something to do with how the MIC chairs have been treated?
Of course, yes. And it's not just the make chairs, but even women
Just women
politicians.
in leadership.
And one of the things that we have been doing as WAREC, as NGO Gender Connection Network, is to work with the media, because we realize that the media can break or make. So one of the things that we said to the media was that they should report positively about women. Yeah, because somehow our society expects a lot from women.
Thank you. I feel like we have to work twice as hard.
Yes, to prove yourself.
Yes.
Men can make mistakes, that will be fine. They'll be forgiven.
It's a man.
But if it's a woman, they'll not be forgiven. So we had to work with the media to ensure that they're able to report positively. Yeah, about women, about how they're able to do things, about how they're operating and all that. We see some changes with some media houses, but of course others, they didn't change a lot. But also social media has been very negative. Yeah, so much as the mainstream media can report positively, but what has been on the social media space, you find it has been very negative. But I think for me, the way that the make chair has performed, sticking to her guns, making sure that she's following the procedures that are laid out, I think that has been commendable. And I think that's what we should be applauding her for. Yeah.
I like what you said, that when it comes to women, it seems like we have to work extra hard just to prove ourselves.
Yes, yes.
Why do you think women are judged more harshly than men in similar positions?
It's the same patriarchal system. It's the same patriarchal system. And it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man. Because I've also seen women actually judging harshly towards their fellow women. But it's the patriarchal system, yeah, that doesn't expect a lot from women when they're leaders. Yeah. So for you to prove that you're a good leader, then you have to work extra hard so that people actually believe that you can
actually
indeed,
are a good
yes,
leader.
yes, that's what has been happening. So it's the patriarchal nature of our system. It doesn't believe in women's leadership. And I think it's high time that we need to change the way we are socializing children, the way our education system is operating. We need to have a curriculum that will give a positive story of both the boy and the girl child if we are going to make any progress in the nation.
So would you say it has to start from a grassroots level, having women in leadership should begin from as low as possible, from even
from
teachers?
households. Actually, from households. How do we treat the male children and the female,
female children.
How do we treat them?
True.
In schools, how do we treat them? In church, in the faith communities, how are women viewed? Because the way women are going to be viewed in those spaces is the same way they're going to be viewed at national level. So we need to change the way we view women, the way we treat women, the way we treat the girl child, and be able to show the world to say both the boy child and the girl child are important for the development of the nation.
I agree. 100%. 100% I agree. So if you were to advise the incoming MIC chair, what advice would you give them? Regardless of whether they are male or female.
Yeah. Okay. I think for me, it's just to maybe try to give as much information as possible of the processes that are being undertaken. I think one of the things that we highlighted, I remember in one of our engagements with electoral stakeholders, was the fact that maybe at the very beginning, there wasn't a lot of information being given into the public. Yeah. To the extent that people felt maybe there was something that was being hidden, and they started making their own conclusions. But I think over time we saw a change, because MEC was able to release even a calendar that was actually showing what kind of processes they were going to undertake. That's one. We also saw MEC providing as much information as possible. So, for example, just even the recruitment of clerks, elections clerks, they would actually say what kind of process they have undertaken. Even before that, they would actually tell stakeholders to say, okay, we want to recruit clerks who are going to do this kind of work, and this is the process that we're going to do. So I think over time, MEC has been very open. They've been able to give out information, and I think that's the trend that is supposed to be promoted, to say, because this is like all citizens are stakeholders.
Yes.
Yeah. So you need to ensure that your stakeholders are informed. So I think that's what MEC should be doing, to say, for everything that they're doing, provide as much information as possible. Yeah.
Over the past few elections that you've been able to observe,
Yeah.
would you say that MEC as an institution has improved its credibility over time?
It's very difficult to say because even if you go by, for example, the surveys that have been conducted, there's been a mixed bag in terms of how people view MEC. Somehow people have viewed MEC, whichever MEC, people have viewed MEC to align itself with the current government. And I think that's what was also happening even in this year. And I think the MEC chair has had to come out herself and prove to the people, to say, I'm not aligning with anyone. I'm just doing my work according to what the law is saying, and this is what I'm able to deliver. So I think there's been always a very suspicious,
Yes.
negative against MEC, to say, okay, they always align with the current government, with the incumbent president and all that. But I think one of the things that we need to commend our MEC for in Malawi is that it tries, according to the law, it tries to ensure that it's represented by different political parties. So you find that the current MEC, it has MCP representatives, but also DPP representatives. So I think that also tries to bring in a balance
Yes.
in terms of how people can view MEC. But I think the general view has been to say MEC aligns with the government. But I think the current MEC has shown to say, no, we have just been operating within the law, and this is what we are producing for you. Yeah.
How have you felt the role of observers? Because with every election, there's always international observers that
Yes,
come
yes.
in to do that. Do they actually play a functional role
They
when it
do.
comes to?
Okay. So observers, by their nature, they're just observers. Yeah. So by the name observing. So
They're
you,
there to watch.
exactly. So you don't come in and then start changing things.
No.
Yeah. So the only thing that you do is to observe what is happening, and then you come up with a report, which is then submitted to either government or MEC and all that. But it's also up to MEC and even government to take in the recommendations or not from the observers according to what they're thinking. So the observers, I think they have been good in terms of giving an outside perspective, especially the international observers, because they're coming from outside. They are not operating within the context. They're just coming as an outside. So an outsider eye is also important.
Yes.
Because then it will show you where you thought things were working. It will show you to say, okay, this is where the gap is. Maybe you do this. Like, for example, what we had this year from SADC, from AU, COMESA, EU. At least I have liked the recommendations which they made. So, for example, in terms of gender, they were already talking about quotas. Yeah, because they saw that it has been a challenge
Yes.
for women to participate effectively because we don't have an enabling legal framework. So already they're talking about quotas.
So it sounds like your manifesto has backing already.
Exactly. Yeah. So it makes our work easier to say, okay, even the outside world is also watching and they're thinking that this is the way to go. Yeah.
Now, with the election results officially announced, we've got our new leaders in place. How do women leaders play a role when it comes to cooling the political temperatures? Because obviously there are some who are sore losers, some who have
Yes, yes.
accepted
Excellent.
their losses.
Yeah.
What role do now female leaders play, both inside and outside politics?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I think it has been the facilitation role. So, for example, like the women's movement, OREC, Women's Manifesto, and others, we have had to do engagements.
Okay.
Yeah. So
What do these engagements look like?
So, for example, would call upon MEC and do a meeting with MEC. Would call upon the police, do a meeting with the police, or trying to see how things can be handled. Yeah. So I think that has been the role. So for me, I already see that even after the elections have been done, after the results have been
Announced.
we still have that role to continue facilitating dialogue. Because without dialogue, it's not possible for us to have a peaceful environment.
No.
Those that are in politics, we also expect them to do the same. They should not be the ones to incite violence. And I think in some cases we have seen women being used in political spaces
Yes, we have.
Yes,
Yes,
where
we
they'll
have.
come out and start a discussion around contentious issues, which men shy away from. So for us as a women's movement, we have been saying women that are in politics, they should also resist that kind of temptation of being used to incite things that are not acceptable. So we need women in the political spaces to also initiate dialogues that are going to ensure that there's peaceful environment being experienced by everyone. Yeah.
Do you think it's done on purpose when they specifically choose women to talk about?
Yeah, obviously it's done on purpose. Yeah, it's done on purpose, and I think sometimes women have had to come out and do such kind of things because they also want to be accepted within the space. They want
Sort
to,
of a way to carry favor.
yeah, carry favor, yeah, with the leaders that be. So I think that has been an issue that has been of concern to us as women's rights activists, because most of the times we find that where there are contentious issues, it will be
There's
a
a female
woman.
voice.
Uh-huh.
There's a female voice.
It will be a woman standing up, and then they will talk about so many other things that are not acceptable, even to the society at large. Yeah, so we need women that will speak to power and be able to say, we are not going to be used for this. Yeah.
But I guess it also has to come from that place of understanding that, or understanding that their voice is powerful, and
Yeah.
that's why they're being used.
Exactly.
And to
So they're
choose.
influential, and they should influence in the right way and not in the wrong way.
I like that. I like that. So maybe in conclusion, looking 5 years ahead, what would a truly gender progressive election look like in Malawi from the eyes of Maggie Kathewera Banda?
Okay, one, I think it's in terms of the leadership, yeah, of the electoral body itself. So I think the way we have proceeded with the current make, I think that has at least almost ensured gender balance in terms of the leadership, in terms of the composition of the commission. So I think going forward, we need such kind of a body where both men and women are participating in decision-making processes. We need electoral laws that are able to respond to the needs of women. Yeah, and then we also need even the environment itself, the electoral environment, to be safe for women, where women are guaranteed that they can go for political rallies and they're not going to be targeted, where women can actually present themselves as candidates and they're not going to be targeted, where the environment is just generally peaceful for women, where the media is responding to the needs of women and being able to report positively about women, where we have the electorate that believes that women can be leaders and are able to vote for women. Yeah.
That's a big ask.
Yes.
But we've got 5 years.
Exactly.
I think it's possible.
Yes, it is.
Maggie, thank you so much for joining us on this
You're welcome.
podcast. It's been an honor having
You're
this
welcome.
conversation with you.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me in this program.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and rewind to watch any part that you wish you understood better. See you on the next episode of Face2Face Podcast.